I got one watching on YouTube.
Great.
Cool.
Okay, we should now be live broadcasting for another edition of Tech Talks. And this week, our good buddy Ben here is going to be leading the show and talking about student recordings as a form of authentic assessment.
Yeah, and we kind of brought up this idea thinking this would be a good time to introduce video recording and authentic assessment as a way to maybe, in part of or replace some of those high pressured final exams that folks have been using. And so, video and video creation can be done over a period of time. It can be done in small chunks. It doesn't have to be kind of that high stakes pressure exam. And so we thought, let's put together a little piece on how we can do that in Canvas and some of the tools that we have available to us. Hey, Jared. And so thinking about that kind of got me working through all the different things that we have. And I was reaching out to a few different folks of what they do in their class. And idea was to come up with this presentation today to talk about just kind of briefly, hey, what can you do and when is a good use case? And then provide some resources for you if you go, hey, that's what I want to do. And so I've created a list of resources for instructors, but maybe more importantly for students, so that they can participate and they can hopefully successfully complete the activities that you're assigning them. So I'm going to share my screen. I got a short little slide deck together. Hey, Ursula. Hey, Sam. Thanks for joining us. All right. Do you guys see this? Are we almost full screen on this?
We see two Canvas pages. So there we go. Okay, got it.
Okay. Am I sharing the full screen?
Yep, full screen slides.
Sweet. Okay, so side note, Caleb's job, I think, is being replaced. Caleb's former job is being replaced by graphic designers that are automated, that are built into PowerPoint. Because all I did was throw pictures on here and it picked colors for me and I didn't have to think at all.
Well, that's the reason I didn't go into that industry. I saw that coming.
And it's pretty generic as well. So it lacks your creativity.
But it looks nice.
Yeah, but just to kind of kickstart this conversation, and we'll definitely keep this to 2:30 or 1:30 on the dot, because I know we got another thing coming up.
Yep.
Giving students authentic assessments, of course, provides them some opportunities to do things that they're unable to do with more traditional assessment types. We can reduce and discourage academic dishonesty, increase the integrity of some of the activities. More importantly, though, we can create more student-centered activities that they can really present themselves in through this. And video is a good way of doing that. And so, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to show you a few different ways to do that in your classes. The first one is setting up an assignment for media submissions in Canvas. And so Canvas has a video recorder already built into it. That's mobile friendly, it's MacBook friendly, Chromebook friendly. It all works in HTML5, which is the new website language that allows you to kind of use these tools. And so students can really just click start recording and record a picture of themselves. Now, it's not a whole presentation like what you're seeing here, but it is good for video introductions or peer reviews or responses to prompts, discussion boards, things like that. And I've found it, and in some specific cases, anecdotally, I found it to be pretty interesting because I felt the students often recorded this about 8 times before they submitted it. And so you're getting a really good quality version. Maybe better than if you just impromptu ask students to respond to a question and had them raise their hand and respond in the class. They tried a few different ways. They thought through their responses. Some of them actually wrote it down. So let me show you how to do that while Caleb, go ahead and talk.
I was just going to say that's a really great form of a concept called private practice before public demonstration, which is a a learning strategy that I think was originally kind of popularized in Indigenous and Native American education, but it's really applicable to all student populations. The idea that most students are most comfortable when you will give them a chance to privately reflect and privately practice a skill or a procedure or a presentation before having to put yourself out there in public. So by giving them the chance to do 5 or 6 or 7 takes before they hit submit, that takes a lot of the anxiety out of it.
Yeah, absolutely, Caleb. Almost getting that, that initial feedback before they actually respond.
Yeah.
I found it to be helpful and specifically teaching English as a second language.
Yeah, it's huge for second language English students, huge for minority students, first generation students, really anybody that isn't used to the format of standing up in front of a classroom of college students and talking extemporaneously.
Yeah. So the only thing you have to do when you want to get students to respond this way is, one, you got to tell them to, but 2, in your assignment instructions, under submission type, you have to select media recordings. And so that's an option for submission. Once you save that, oh, do I have my baby up? Yeah. Once you save that, here's a student view. Let's go back. When the student goes to submit, they're going to see submit assignment here. And then they have all of these options across the bottom. And then media is one of them. This is a little bit confusing and maybe something I would like to see if e-learning could rework and remove maybe some of this stuff. But media is the option here. They go ahead and click record, upload media. It's not going to work for me right now because I'm already using my camera for something else. But right now they would see a preview of what their camera shows. They can select a different webcam this way. They can select a different mic, or they can click upload media if they already have it on their phone. And that's generally how students will do it, is they'll record on their phone and then they'll upload media this way. Which is
is there a time limit to the recording, maximum length on these?
There's not, but there is a file size limit, which is a good question. Great segue. And the file size limit is 500 megs per submission, which doesn't really mean anything because my webcam, and if I'm recording on my computer, if I speak for 10 minutes, it might be 30 or 40 megs. But 10 minutes maybe on my phone, which films in like 4K, 10 minutes could really be 200 to 300 megs. And so students are going to have to kind of play around with that. I did one test on my phone and it was like a 35-minute video was about 300 megs. So one, that's a lot of data that they're uploading. So get on Wi-Fi if you're going to upload that kind of data, if you don't have a good data plan. And 2, that can take a long time if you're working on your data plan. Just to upload. And so it's just kind of processing. Students have to be patient. Often they'll close it before it's actually fully uploaded. But if you haven't seen this before as an instructor, you can just go into Speedgrader and you can see those submissions as they come in. So let's go to Sketch. And there's that video. And so you can use your rubrics, you can use your tools here. A nice way to grade that. The next thing I wanted to show was Panopto. So Panopto is another way that you can have students submit. And the big difference there is rather than students submitting just a video of themselves, they can also submit a second video feed. So much like what you're seeing now, you're seeing my screen. So they can demonstrate knowledge with a tool, a software, a website, a PowerPoint presentation, while also recording themselves. So, just like how you use Panopto Lecture Capture to record some of your lectures, students have access to that as well. For you to set that up, you need to go into your course. load Panopto. And then I think it's folder settings. Hey, and then you click on assignment folder. And what that does is that creates the space for students to go in there and record, because the students can't go ahead and they don't have the permissions to record in your folder here. They can't do that here. But if you create the assignment folder, the students can go into here and they can record their own videos. By default, these videos are just for you and them to see. They're not for their peers to see. But you can change that setting. You can have it be available so that they can do peer review or share the videos with each other. And so, you know, again, why is this different? Well, it's not just them on their camera. It's them showing a process or showing a website while they talk. So just like you, if you want to do this, if you want to record, you can you can select whether or not you use Panopto's app or Panopto's web capture. The difference between, the difference between the web capture and the app I feel is a whole lot more consistent. It's a little easier to use. However, it doesn't work for Chromebooks. Students who are using Chromebooks have to use this Panopto capture. Everybody else I'd recommend to use the app, whether it's Windows or Mac. I feel it just does a better job, better editing. But you can use Panopto capture, but I'd give them a couple practice assignments, because even I got confused on whether or not I was sharing my screen or not sharing my screen. And when I thought I was, it ended up just being a black screen. So I really don't recommend it after using it quite a bit. It was beta like a couple of months ago, and so I think it's still kind of beta, but it is an option for Chromebook students who really want to get in there and figure it out. But yeah, students go in there, they click on it, and then they can go ahead and upload presentations and talks this way. Limits here are, you know, this video is no longer on their phone, it's on Panopto's server. So something to consider is ownership. The students can go ahead and download it even after the term is over, but you know, when they're no longer a student, they don't have access to this anymore. It's not the same as if they were posting their video up on YouTube. So definitely something to think about. Any questions on that before we move on?
I was just going to ask a question on how you would get this in front of the students. Would you essentially create a link to this practice, for instance, this practice speech assignment folder in the actual assignment page to get them there to record, or would you give them directions?
Good question. I think there's an easy way, and then there's like a really pretty elegant way. So it's up to you. The easy way is students click Panopto recordings. I'm under Skitch, he's a student. And then they click the assignment folder and then they create. The more elegant way to get it in Speedgrader is the students, you create an assignment for them to submit it to. The students go into that, they go to attempt. Under text entry, they can go in and click on Panopto recordings. And so that's a way that they can submit that in that way, just like you do in the HTML editor or in your rich content editor. This is a weird video of Patrick eating an apple. And I don't know how it popped up here, but it's hilarious. And it's about 1.5 minutes of him just munching away.
So this is just showing any videos that were created on that Skitch student account.
Yeah, so this is Skitch's account. So this would be all their videos, which likely isn't a lot, but they can, you know, they can go into that assignment folder and they can go ahead and record there, or they can choose something they've already uploaded to Panopto.
Gotcha.
So this is a fancy way, but it's really a lot of steps for a student. And as I said when I started this talk, I made resources for all of this, so a student can learn how to do this if you'd like them to. But the nice way about this, hey, it's in Speedgrader. So you can grade it just like you're grading all of your other activities.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have a question too, Ben. Whenever I pretend I'm a student, so I go in, I choose student view, and then I go into Panopto recordings to track what you just demonstrated. It asks me to sign in,
Yeah. So
and then it blocks me.
yeah. So what I was doing there is I actually had a student account, or Sketch. Sketch is a student. And so Sketch's Panopto account and Canvas account are linked. The student view doesn't have a Panopto account, so you can't really go through a student view with Panopto.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
That's why it's getting hung up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the next one that I wanted to show you was really using Zoom recording as a way for student presentations. This is, Zoom is just so easy now. And I think students have really gotten comfortable with using Zoom. And then there's other benefits too. With Zoom, you can do really easy Zoom group presentations. Students can embed captions in them. And so this is kind of one thing that you could help students with. I made a video on how to do it, but essentially they set up their Zoom account, which they do by going to the Zoom portal and putting in their Bigfoot ID information. And then they start a recording, record to their computer, and then they can upload that into Panopto or a media submission, much like kind of the Canvas videos. And so, Zoom's pretty versatile in that way too. And all of our students do have free accounts. They don't have the pro accounts that we do, but the free accounts allow them to have 40-minute sessions. And so plenty of time for any of the presentations, most of the presentations you'd be asking of. And then one more idea that I had, and this actually came from Ursula, who is delightful, is this this recording with PowerPoint. And it's something I hadn't really thought of. Oh, let me try one more time. I always forget. I got to optimize for video and share my sound. And so, this is kind of a cool way to get students practicing. Do I need to switch? Yeah. This is kind of a cool way to get students practicing their presentations because they can record small snippets for each slide. And so I don't know if you've ever done this before. I've had students do this in a class before. It was a real simple presentation, but the students were going through some vocabulary words. And so for each word, they had to create a small snippet of their pronunciation and then use it in the sentence that was connected to the grammatical structure we were studying that week or that month. And so it's pretty simple. The students can just go ahead.
PowerPoint gives you the opportunity to record
and embed this audio right in there. So I'm not sure if this is actually something I meant to have recorded or if I was going to embarrass myself. So I stopped that. However, students can build slides this way. I know some instructors really find this valuable as well because when their content is constantly changing, I'm thinking health information sciences and some of the coding, like in the billing classes or computer information systems, CIS, when that stuff's changing, they don't have to redo an entire lecture. They can just update a few slides. So it might be something worth playing around with your students as well.
PowerPoint gives you.
Yeah. So use cases. Here's the graphical design AI that took over, Caleb. I did not do these icons at all. Bizarre, right?
Awesome.
So, assignment submissions, discussion posts, peer reviews, presentations, demonstration speeches, and then some language development. These are different ways that we could use that video. These are some of the things that I was brainstorming, but definitely wanted to leave it up to maybe a little discussion once we get to the end of ways that you're thinking of using it as well. And then always kind of think about, who owns that video? Is this something we want the students to keep and have access to? When it goes into an assignment submission in Canvas, it's pretty much gone from them. Same with Panopto. If it's something we really want to make in a portfolio, maybe we can have them shoot it off to YouTube, their own account, or keep backups. And then the support and the devices that they have is key. So knowing those resources available to them, that they can, one, learn how to do the action, or make the recording, but two, have the devices to be able to do it. And so in the chat in a second, I'll throw a link to all the resources that I made for this talk. And I think for those that on YouTube, Caleb was able to put that link into the talk description as well.
Yes, that link should be in the YouTube description, and I just tried to paste it in the Zoom chat, but it gave me a funky YouTube link, so that's not the right one.
Okay, I'll pull it up and throw it in there.
Great. While you're doing that, we had a couple of questions come up in the Zoom chat that I want to make sure get repeated for YouTube. Ursula asked, do the free Zoom meetings have all of the annotation features? And the answer to that, Nick, you said is yes.
Yes, it should be. I think the main things that get locked down are like polling and other host privileges, but whiteboarding annotation you should have access to.
Great. And then Samantha asked, how do students access their Zoom account? Do they just do a regular free account, or do they have an account linked to CCS somehow?
Great question. And if you look in the link I pasted in the chat, I believe there's a resource for that when we discussed student tutorial for recording presentations using Zoom. But the long and the short of it is the students go to our Zoom portal, which, let's see if my memory can figure that out. ccs-spokane.zoom.us.
Sounds right.
Yeah, let me share my screen. So this is our Zoom portal, ccs-spokane.zoom.us. And then there's some instructions, a small amount of instructions here for students. So they're going to use their @bigfoot.spokane.edu email. So they'll sign in. They'll use that email. I'm already signed in. And then their CTC link password should get them in there. And then they'll have essentially a free Zoom license that's connected to their CCS account.
And anybody can sign up for a free Zoom account just in general, but the normal free accounts have some limitations, including, I think, 40-minute meeting limits. At least that's what it used to be. That might have changed.
I think that's still the case.
But if they sign in with their Bigfoot email account, then they should have, I assume they have unlimited meeting links at that point.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Jerry. And I think one of the things to note is that they would have to sign in through the Zoom portal or through the Zoom app with their Bigfoot email before they would be able to log in, kind of thing. That's what creates those accounts.
Yes.
I used to have students do group meetings on Zoom, and they were unlimited, at least in the winter and spring quarter. I don't know if that has changed.
Okay.
That's good to know.
Yeah, I think they're unlimited one-on-one meetings. If they're group meetings, they're capped at 40 minutes.
Gotcha.
I think there's a few different little rules there. And so, if they're practicing a group presentation before they actually record it, they might want to close it out, start it over again before their final recording. It would be a total bummer for them to get 15, 20 minutes into a recording and have to restart all over again.
Mhm.
And I will just add a really inelegant solution that I've done before for student submissions is to, as the instructor, create a meeting and have it set to record automatically. So the moment somebody jumps into the meeting, it starts recording, but you don't get that repetition and the process of perfecting, like Ben was talking about. So that is one of the big downsides. But if you do need to record, say, student group conversations, and they might be forgetting to send them to you, then you could do it that way, where you connect your Zoom account, give them times to jump in, it records, and then it gets sent to your Panopto. Gotcha. So something to consider, but definitely not as elegant.
Sure.
Well, Nick, I think this is all about inelegant solutions. I don't think you can have perfect student recordings because there's so many things at play. There's software, there's technology, there's digital literacy going on with it all. So I think if you're gonna do this type of activity, you got to be pretty mellow about it and understand that it's a process, and some practice activities are going to be needed to get any of those final products nailed down.
Actually, something to consider also when it comes to kind of the idea of digital literacy around this. I know at a previous institution, we had students recording through Zoom, and we found that a lot of our requirements ended up actually pinpointing some equity issues like, oh, I don't have a private place where I can record. Oh, I don't have money for extra lighting to put around my desk in this like corner of my house. So you might also want to consider the kind of requirements that you're asking of them. Is it going to be an undue burden on certain populations just to ask them to do things that you might consider, professional when in fact they actually are a pretty big burden?
Yeah, that's a good point. Or, if a student submits something and they've done the recording in their car, that's probably because that was the quietest, most private space they had access to.
Exactly.
And that's not a student being lazy. That's a student working with the environment that they have access to.
Great point. Yeah.
I have one more question. There's something, I don't even know how to quite ask the question, but sometimes when students submit a presentation, I can click it open and it immediately takes over my monitor. It maximizes itself. If I in any way try to do something else like multitask while watching the presentation, it immediately stops the presentation.
Interesting. That's in Panopto?
That's PowerPoint recordings.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
other times I can watch the presentation on one of the monitors while I'm doing some other stuff on the other monitor, and I'm perfectly fine. What is the difference there? And that must be in the submission.
that
right?
would be file type. Sometimes a student might not export it as like a MP4 or video file.
Mhm.
So you have to open it in a presentation view to watch the recording. Something that you can do is you probably could change it, the view instead of a presentation view. I believe it's called reading view or reader view. So it's basically opening a PowerPoint presentation in a windowed view. That would potentially be the workaround, or exporting it as like an MP4.
That's
Let me-
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that might,
Ursula,
yeah.
do you have multiple monitors?
I have two
Let me show you one thing that might help.
because I want to multitask while listening to
Yeah, you want to
20,
grade,
10-minute presentations. Let's face it.
Well, and that's the beauty of having it in a recorded state, right? It does make it easier to do things like that.
Okay, so I'm in a presentation right now.
Okay.
You're seeing the second screen, like the presenter view, right?
Mhm.
This one I can minimize. And so I could have something up here. And then on my other screen, I have the actual presentation going. Because, if you completely close that out, you're not getting the audio when they're speaking through your slides, right? But I can minimize this so this one screen can be open.
And Ben, for just the example, would you mind closing out of the presentation real quick and showing that actual editor view of the PowerPoint?
Yeah, what do you want me to do?
So if you go into the bottom right corner, so you've got notes, and then you've got grid patterns, that reading view, if you click on that, that's the windowed version of PowerPoint. You should still be able to listen to the recording in that format. And then you can minimize it and kind of play around with it as you need to.
PowerPoint gives you the opportunity to record directly on.
Hey, that works, right?
And that gets rid of the maximized view that I think Ursula is referring to.
sure.
So then you can really just do it with one screen too, if needed.
hopefully that makes sense, but get with us later if you're still having issues with it.
I think you answered my question, but it means that I have to download the student's assignment rather than just clicking on it in the Speedgrader.
Yeah, so if they're recording audio in their PowerPoint, Speedgrader is not going to show you all that. You would have to download
Yeah.
the PowerPoint file.
Mhm.
Yeah, yep.
That's a good one.
Oh, okay.
All right, so
That helps.
if I were to put a bun on it, put a pin in this one, I would say, you know, authentic assessment, of course, is a great idea, but be very mindful of, you know, some of the asks that you're asking of your students. Hopefully these resources that have been shared in the links can help you kind of bridge those challenges for students a little easier. Develop some practice activities that you could do to get them comfortable using this technology, and, you know, maybe bring it in earlier for a low stakes introduction activity so they can have some practice, and hopefully you find some value in bringing this into your course.
I love these presentations.
Cool.
Thanks, Ben, for running the show today. We do have to cut it a little short quickly here because we have another meeting we have to run to. We will not be having a Tech Talk next week because it will be the Thanksgiving holiday, and we'll be working on Tuesday, but we don't want to do a presentation. Nobody else is going to be here. So we will return on November 30th with another Tech Talk at that point, which will be talking about digital note-taking, specifically a tool called Rocket Notes, but I think we'll also be looking at a couple alternative digital note-taking tools as well.
Cool.
All right, thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks again, Ben.
Okay.